What's up, bro? How you doing, man?
I'm good. What's up, Mike?
Chilling, man. Thank you so much for sitting down talking with me and everything. I've been wanting to get one started, with the new setup for my channel, and I really wanted to talk with you, man, and start it out. So appreciate it big time,
It's
man.
my pleasure, bro. I appreciate you having me on, man.
Awesome, man. Thanks. I guess a lot of people know your story and everything, so we don't have to go into everything you've done in combat sports or whatever, but I do want to get like a little beginning base, like how did you get started in combat sports? Like what was your first thing you got into?
I mean, I think I got started a lot like a lot of fighters, really. Growing up in a tough neighborhood and fighting in the streets, really. Fighting off some of the bullying. I wasn't a big kid growing up, so I think that's how I started, really. But I was a boxer before I was an MMA fighter. Um, I remember I had one of the first really tough losses in my life before I had any combat sports experience. I fought a guy by the name of Ricky Johnson, uh, who was a black dude from Glen Cove, New York, who had dreadlocks, and he was a Golden Glove. He won the Golden Gloves back in the day, and he took an interest in my girlfriend back in the day, and my girlfriend cheated on me with him. So, being a young kid, I challenged him to fight, and we met actually at a train station in New York, and we went in this enclosed area, this like fenced in area, and there was dirt and gravel on the ground, and the train was behind us, and it was me, my friend Charlie Patino, his cousin John Patino, and Ricky Johnson, and he pulled up actually on a pedal bike, and because we were young, we were, I was 15 at the time. I think he was like 16 at the time. He had just won the Golden Gloves, and obviously I didn't know that he had won the Golden Gloves, and we squared up, man, and I hit him with like a 2-punch combination, and he kind of did one of these. Oh, okay, we're gonna fight, and I was like, oh fuck, He hit
Thought
me,
that was going to be it.
yeah. He hit me good with a 3-piece combination and dropped me, and then he got on top of me and he was rubbing my face in the gravel, and that was the first loss I had taken. That was the first, I'd say, real street fight I had been in. I mean, I had been in some scrapes prior to that, but I think that was my first experience fighting somebody that was trained, that actually knew how to fight.
Knew how to fight, yeah.
And he fucked me up good, and I remember being humiliated and saying to myself, I never want to go through that again. So I joined the Police Activity League, which was like a league for in the community. They had the PAL leagues in New York, and they were they would have boxing, and I trained with a guy who trained Louis Del Val. And for those of you that don't know who Louis Del Val is, Louis Del Val was one of the first guys to ever take Roy Jones Jr. to a decision. So I trained with a guy, and I had a bunch of amateur boxing fights, and I won the Golden Gloves a year later. And that was my introduction to combat sports.
Right. And at what point did you start to make the step to go from boxing to like mixed martial arts, and why did you make that decision, man? What made you go that way?
So I had a friend of mine, God rest his soul. His name was Mike Minimoto. We called him Minimoto, and his last name was Tosti. He was a half Jew, half Italian guy from New York. His mother was Jewish and his father was Italian, and he was like 33 years old, and we were 16-year-old kids, and we were very impressionable kids. And he used to put on the old UFC tapes, and we used to watch Royce Gracie fight back in the day. And I became really fucking like blown away by how easily Hoist Gracie was taking down these fighters, putting them, controlling them on the ground, and ultimately submitting them. And I said to myself, I had been in several street fights, and it always ended up in a grappling situation, a wrestling situation. I mean, it's very, very difficult to hit someone clean in the street and knock them out with one punch. I mean, it's nearly impossible, especially if you're fighting someone that's tough. People that are tough can take punches, and obviously it ended up in a wrestling situation. So I decided to, start training with Mike Tosti, who had some grappling experience. So that's how I kind of got introduced to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and the grappling aspect of fighting. And the way I looked at it was as if I'm going to be a fighter, I might as well be well versed in fighting, because if not, then what's the point of it? You know what I mean? I mean, it's kind of silly. It's kind of silly, the whole boxing versus MMA argument. I know you come from a boxing background, and I do too, but if I was going to fight with somebody in the street, the closest thing to a street fight situation is mixed martial arts, really. Being able to strike, being able to grapple, is the combination and the recipe for being a well-trained, well-skilled fighter. So
well-rounded. Yeah. I was on a show, I guess 2 weeks ago, man, talking with a guy, and he was into jiu-jitsu, and my nephew, he's a black belt, and he's got a gym, his own dojo and all that. But I was telling the guy, any street fight that almost every street fight I was ever in ended with me using a wrestling move. It wasn't boxing.
Exactly.
Very few did I hit a guy and that was it. It was usually a wrestling move. Yeah.
Exactly. And the way I looked at it was also, I looked at it as far as damage too, because I mean, as well as I know, you take a lot of damage when you box. I mean, it's a lot of blows to the head. And the way I looked at it was, I wanted to be able to basically be able to subdue people without even actually hurting them. I mean, I believe in my skills so much now that most untrained people, I think that I could take them down, put them on their back, control them, tire them out, and not even throw a single punch and be like, yo, bro, you good? Are we good here? Like, I have the upper hand. I can literally hurt you right now. And I could just be able to walk away. Now, whether I choose to do that or I don't choose to do that, that's really on me. But I think the ultimate self-defense is being able to protect yourself, not take any damage, and neutralize and subdue an attacker. So that's why I love Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
I think it's great, man. That your story was about the same as what my nephew did. So he used to go to boxing gym with me as a kid, and then he got into boxing. Even as he was in college, man, he was doing a little boxing, and eventually he was training with Saul Solis, right? And when he was with Saul, he already had hands, but he hadn't started jiu-jitsu or anything, And, I mean, he was taking like some classes, but he was a white belt and he really wasn't into it. And so Saul told him, hey man, you either need to turn pro in boxing or take some jiu-jitsu, And he thought about it and he said, you know what? I can't take punches this long my whole life and that type of stuff. So I'm going to get into that. So that's how he kind of got into it the same way, man. So
Right. And I just became addicted to the grind of I mean, I came up in an era, and I'm sure, is it your nephew you said?
Yes, my nephew.
I'm sure your nephew can vouch for me and can remembers the era of the gym storming days. There was always a gym enforcer, because back in the day there was a lot of rivalries within Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Like, the gyms in each area, for example, like in Springfield, we had rivals with other schools, and there would always be challenge matches, and people from other schools would come into the school and want to fight and stuff like that. And I was kind of sort of known, even as a white belt, as like the gym enforcer. Like, I would be the one that had, I would, put my team's name on my back, so to speak, and represent for my school. And there'd be blood all over my gi, and I would never quit. And I was just kind of known as that, tough fighter type of guy in my gym. So that's kind of how it came about, me fighting MMA. I protected and defended my multiple gyms that I trained at's name. And that's kind of how it snowballed into an MMA career for me,
Right. Being game, basically. That's what we would say in Pitbull world. Is being game. You were game, man.
Yep.
What do you remember the feeling you had, man, in your first pro fight? Like, what was like going through your mind, or the butterflies and all that? What was the feeling you had, man, going into that?
So I came up in an era, again, where mixed martial arts was a lot different than where it is today. My first professional fight was in 2006, I believe. And it was at a place called Club Lido. Club Lido is in Revere, Massachusetts, which is out towards Boston, towards the Boston area of Massachusetts. So it's Eastern Massachusetts. I'm from Western Massachusetts. I'm from Springfield. So it's about an hour and 15 minutes from me, Revere. But back in those days, Club Lido hosted an organization called the WFL, World Fighting League. It was actually in a ring. It wasn't in an octagon.
Right.
And back in those days, mixed martial arts wasn't sanctioned in Massachusetts. So it was weird. It was like, I don't even know if it was legal or if it was illegal back then, because
Right.
MMA was on a big stage. It was starting to become really big and popular, but at a Massachusetts and at a lower level, they would host these events in bars and stuff, and they'd have an octagon in the middle of the bar, or they have a ring, and there'd be a small crowd, with 500 to 1,000 people, but they were on top of you. You know what I mean? Like, it was literally a packed house. So, I mean, my first professional fight, they didn't have amateurs back then in MMA,
Right.
mixed martial arts in Massachusetts, because it wasn't sanctioned yet. So you were either a pro or you weren't going to fight. So I had got my blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu from Hoist Gracie. He gave me my blue belt, and I told my coach that I wanted to fight. And I moved to Boston because my son's mother was from South Boston, and at the time I was living in Southie. And my first fight, man, was at Club Lido in Revere in 2006. And I fought a Division One All-American wrestler, a guy that trained with John Jones and was in college with John Jones, a guy named Justin Dwork. You can look him up. He trained with John Jones. He trained with Aljamain Sterling, who was the UFC. I think he's the UFC champion now. But Justin Dwork was a Division One wrestler. I was a jiu-jitsu blue belt. And he took me down several times. He slammed me a couple times, and I was able to secure a triangle choke in the first round, and I won my first fight. But that feeling is almost animalistic feeling. You take that walk, the crowd, the energy. There's nothing like it.
Right. The adrenaline and everything. How about after that win, man? Were you like even more pumped, like even like ready for the next one even more after that? Or
Yeah, but I mean the whole lifestyle that came with that win. Everybody wants to be close to you. Everybody has respect for you. Everybody's showing you love. You get addicted to that high. It's just like any other high. I have a history of alcoholism. I make no bones about the fact that, I throughout my MMA career, I was in active addiction. Like, I was an alcoholic and an addict. So it's the same thing as that feeling. You get addicted to chasing the feeling of winning an MMA fight. It's the same thing.
Right. Yeah, you had that same endorphins and whatever that drives you to do either thing. It can either go into a positive direction or a negative. So
Yeah, and I think an addict is an addict. It doesn't matter what you're addicted to. I think
no,
an addictive mindset, addictive mentality is it doesn't just have to be for drugs and alcohol. It can be for everything. And I think that for me, I think that MMA became an addiction, you know?
right, right, yeah. I mean, people get, like you said, for anything. It could be getting money, it could be whatever it is. But when it becomes unhealthy, that's when it's a major problem, man.
Yep.
So, yeah. Well, um, so along the way in training and going, when did you end up with your first loss, man?
So I
Because
actually
people
lost, so I
let,
actually lost my second fight.
okay. So see, that's the one thing I was going to say is with with MMA and jujitsu, people, a lot of people don't understand the win loss type thing. Like I seen my nephew tear his Achilles and his meniscus in the same fight, bro. And I literally carried him to the podium to get his medal. You know what I'm saying? And he would have won. It was within a few seconds of winning. So the reason I say that is you could. It's different than just boxing or something. You know what I mean? It has no bearing on how good of a fighter or not you are. You know what I mean? In that uh, in that realm of sports, in my opinion.
I
So
agree.
so tell me the like, okay, so you just spoke of the biggest high. How about the low, bro, of the loss? What, tell me about that, man.
So my second fight was a tough one because um I had switched camps. I was training at a different school, and I had a scheduled opponent, a guy by the name of Brendan Hoxie, who is known as a very, very good sneaky jiu-jitsu practitioner. He was long, he was lanky, and he was very durable. I mean, he was known to getting his fucking head punched in. Quite frankly, I mean, he took a beating in all his fights, but he was known as the guy that was resilient enough to end up on the winning end of things. And basically, I remember going to the combat. It was in Combat Zone 20. It was in Manchester, New Hampshire, and it was at the Army barracks at the Armory, the Manchester Armory in New Hampshire. And I remember going there, and I was like, "Wow, this venue's sick," because it was in like an old Army barracks, but it was like a where did you know where they put airplanes, like military airplanes?
I was going to say, man, we went to this was for boxing. The Gulf States tournament was at an Army setup like that, where they had a large place where they set planes and they had the rings in there. So yeah, I know exactly what you mean, bro.
So it was like a big empty room, but you could tell it was like an Army hangar,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And then they had the cage in the middle, and then it was a huge crowd, and Kenny Florian, who probably, in my opinion, is one of the most underrated UFC fighters of all time. I mean, you talk about a guy who fought. I mean, you look up Kenny Florian. He fought for the belt, I think, 2 or 3 times in the UFC. He lost to BJ Penn. He lost to Sean Shirk in the UFC. He was the original Ultimate Fighter winner.
Right.
So he was my teammate at the time at a place called Sityo Tong, which is a famous Muay Thai gym in Boston, ran by a guy by the name of Mark Delagrati. Mark Delagrati, I mean, he's coached a who's list of MMA royalty, really. Well, Kenny Florian cornered me for my second professional fight, and basically, I didn't want to wrap my hands because back then, you could choose whether you wrapped your hands or you didn't wrap your hands. Like I said, MMA wasn't really sanctioned back then. So you could choose to wrap your hands or not wrap your hands. So I didn't wrap my hands for whatever reason. I thought that I wanted him to feel my knuckles more, and I wanted him to really feel my punches, you know, and he did. I mean, I walked out in the first round. I mean, I hit him with everything but the kitchen sink, and I mean, I dropped him numerous times. I mean, I hit him to the point where he would go down, and I'd get on top of him, and I'd ground and pound him, and then we'd end up in a grappling exchange, and he would be able to survive, and he survived the first round. He literally crawled back to his corner after the first round. Was up like when the bell rang, he was so fucked up from. I mean, I hit him with, I'm not kidding, like I'd say like 40 to 50 strikes unanswered, and I'm talking about bombs, like punches that would have put anybody out. And like I said, I dropped him. He crawled back to his corner, but my hand was broken. I broke my hand in the process, my right hand. So coming out in the second round, in between rounds, I told Kenny Florian, I said, look, I said, my hand's broken. I said, and I'm like, I'm only going to be able to throw my left hand now. And he's like, yeah, I mean, that sucks. Like, do what you have to do. He's like, do you want me to call the fight? Do you want me to? And I'm like, no, absolutely not. Like, I don't care. Like, there's no way in hell I'm gonna, not fight. So obviously the bell rings, I come out, and now I'm compromised because I can't throw my right hand, and my right hand's my power hand. So I was still throwing my right hand like an idiot because your adrenaline's going and whatever. So we end up in a grappling situation. I sit back to go for a leg lock, ankle lock, and when I go to sit back to go for the ankle lock, I don't throw my leg over to block him from coming on top of me. He timed it perfectly, and he got on top of me, and he mounted me.
Gotcha.
So now he's in the full mount, and I went to bridge him off of me, and I exposed my arm, and he grabbed my arm, and he armbarred me, and my arm, and it was tight, and I'm like, I'm not going to let him break my arm. I'm going to live to fight another day. So I tapped. So my second fight, I lost by armbar, and it sucked. I mean, losing sucks.
Right,
so, I mean,
right.
How did I feel? I felt. I mean, nobody likes to lose. Like you train to fight and you want to win, and it's the opposite of the feeling when you win. It's sadness, depression.
The biggest low. Yeah. No, I got you, man. Did it? So, like, I've been there with fighters who lost, the guys that I really cared about, right? And so, yeah, it sucked just as bad for me, man, because I got that same high when my guy won, as any, that's my team. That's my guy, man. You know what I'm saying? And I've spent a lot of time with this guy or whatever. Did it ever feel like it would have detoured you at all?
No, I mean, look, I went back to the drawing board. I mean, I mourned the loss just like you mourn, because when you lose it, there's a little bit of a mourning process. I mean, you have to be mentally tough to come back from a loss. Like they say, champions are built on losses, and I believe that, because if you can come back from a loss, you're headed in the right direction, and it says a lot about who you are up here, and whether you're a fighter or you're not a fighter at the end of the day. Because coming back from a loss and winning a fight is harder, because mentally you have to rewire your mind, because you start to doubt yourself. You say, is this for me? Should I be doing this? I mean, there's so much shit that goes on in your head, after you lose a fight.
Sure. Yeah.
So you have to really have good people around you and have them build you back up. So yeah, I mean, no, I mean, I never contemplated quitting ever. Like never. Right. I never. That did not deter me. If anything, it just made me more want to go harder in the gym and be better.
Gotcha. I got you. Yeah, I'm gonna pull up one picture here, man. Let me see. There's one from Bellator, huh?
Yeah,
Bellator days or whatever. Yeah, man. I think the same type of mentality. Excuse me, man. I think the same type of thing happens with guys once they get on top as well. Once you're the champion, it's hard to stay people think, oh, it's easy now, he's the champ. Well, you got to train just as hungry once you've got all this money and once you've got all this success to continue that. If not harder.
Look at Conor McGregor, perfect example.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of guys, man. There's so many from MMA even to boxing, keeping that momentum and keeping that mentality and that training that hard to beat what got you there, being that hungry is tough, man, for some guys once they're living like, you know, yeah, I know guys who went from living in the gym, like up in the rafters, man, and in bunks and stuff, to winning the title, and then all of a sudden, bam, they're living in a high rise somewhere, you know. And guess what? In a month or two, that money's gone, bro.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
look, I lived in a fighter house early in my career. I lived in a fighter house, and I lived in Brighton, Massachusetts, which is Alston. Brighton is right. It's in Boston. It's a like a borough of Boston, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Alston, Brighton, and when I was training at Y Crew mixed martial arts with a lot of big name fighters, we had fighters come from Brazil, and they would stay in the fighter house,
Right.
and me and my friend Nick Drummond, who's an MMA fighter too. We shared the house with guys that would come from, we lived there. And I mean, the living conditions, I mean, look, it was a nice apartment, but we were broke. I mean, I was bouncing to supplement my income.
Right.
I was a bouncer at multiple, bars in Boston. But, what people don't understand is that with fighting comes a lifestyle, the drinking, the
Right.
girls, the money, it becomes, it can be toxic if you let yourself get there. And to be honest with you, it was kind of toxic for me a lot during my career.
It's not hard for it to be that way, man. Like you say, the availability of all that and just the culture almost from a lot of guys and what you know what I mean. It's just that I think that happens in sports in general, bro. I think that happens in general with a lot of sports, man.
I mean, I don't consider myself famous. I never got to a level where I would consider myself famous. I mean, I'm very well known in Massachusetts. In Massachusetts, I would say that, like at a low scale, I'm a very well known guy in Massachusetts because I
Sure.
fought here. I fought here for 10 plus years, but
Right.
I can't imagine the level of a guy like Conor McGregor. And that's why I don't judge people. That's why I don't judge anybody, because
Right.
I can't imagine what it's like to walk in his shoes. I mean, everywhere he goes, people are taking pictures. Everybody wants to be close to him.
Yeah.
He's a billionaire. I mean, that can change a person.
Without a doubt, man. Without a doubt. Yeah, man. We had okay. Duba used to bring all his fighters to our gym, so we would have Pernell Whitaker and you know Arturo Gotti, David Tua. Any of these guys would be in there at any time training. Evander Holyfield. Those guys, man. There's a lot of pressure, man, and like you say, it's constant. It doesn't end, man. People don't think, oh, he has a life or whatever. They're there with you that second, and they want a picture or this or that. So yeah, man. That's
And you have to understand, too, and this as well as I know this, dude. The level of egomaniacs that you're around on a regular basis when you're a fighter. I mean, it's literally every day that you're defending and fighting for your life when you're in the gym training for fights. Like it's, excuse me, my allergies are my allergies.
Same here, bro. No, same
But
here.
But the level of like for example, like training for a fight. I mean, you're in a room with a group of guys that everybody's trying to kill each other. You know what I mean? It's
and you have to be like that, bro. You can't
Yeah.
be in that gym. I mean, you could be humble to people and to your friends and the people, but when you're in there training and when you're in there, you can't be doubting yourself or thinking you're not the best. Because that's what you're going to be. You're not going to be the best if you're constantly just thinking, I'm not the best.
Yeah, and the thing is this, you're in the gym with a group of killers. Like, me, when I was at Y Crew Mixed Martial Arts, I mean, I can list a who's list of MMA fighters. Calvin Kattar, he's in the UFC right now. He fought Max Holloway. He's one of the best fighters in the world right now. He was in the gym when I was in the gym. He was my teammate for years. John Howard, he has over 50 fights. He's a UFC, PFL, IFL, veteran. I mean,
Right.
Saul Almeida fought in Bellator, fought in PFL. He was my teammate. Nick Drummond was an undefeated MMA fighter locally. I mean, there was Jorge Rivera, my friend Eli Hawkins. I mean, I can go on and on and on with a list of legitimate tough guys. I'm not talking about street fighters. And make no mistake about it, you know as well as I know, most of these guys, that are trained MMA fighters, they have a street fighting background. That's how they started.
Yeah.
Or
They got into fighting for a reason.
exactly.
They
Like at the end of the day, if you're a pro fighter, you've already earned your bones, and you know how tough you are because you're doing it day in and day out with all these guys that are doing it day in and day out. You can't fake it when you're surrounded by killers. You can't, because you won't make it through a camp.
No, man, you'll be exposed real fast.
Yeah, you won't make it through a camp. You'll be getting dropped every day. You won't make it through sparring sessions. You'll be you're in your head. So that's why I sometimes get kind of aggravated with, the whole I'm a street fighter thing. It really bothers me because it's like there's levels to this shit,
No, I know, man. I don't even think. Listen, bro. When we ran the gym, I was there from like sometimes 6, 7 a.m. till 8 at night or something like that, right? And you don't know how many guys I had that just got out of prison to come in and they wanted to be a fighter, or just walked off the street and may look like a killer, bro. And they may be a killer, but they're not a fight killer. They're not a boxer. They're not, you know what I mean? They're not trained fighter, you know what I mean, for that. That on the street weapons, that's a different story, bro. But I'm talking about in the ring. And every one of them thought they were going to be, world champion. And you know how many guys like I one guy out of everybody that ever came in like that, I trained and was actually a decent fighter, man. Honestly, out of all the dudes for years.
And I'm glad you brought up the whole weapons thing in the street, because I mean, if we're going to be really honest with the whole street fighting thing, people don't fight fair in the street anymore.
No,
you got kids that have 30-round drums, and they're 13, 14 years old in the street today. So, I don't think anybody really fights in the street anymore. And
no,
I think you, me, or anybody would be a fool if they lived in a rough area and they didn't have a weapon, or they didn't use weapons today. Because at the end of the day, if someone's trying to harm you in the street, they're trying to do bodily damage. Like it's a different mentality. It's life or death at that point. So it's like,
bro, there was I heard a guy say this, and I keep it from now on. Oh man, I'm saying it and then I can't remember. It was like I'm too old to get my ass whooped, and I'm too young to die. So listen, man, I'm gonna defend myself, man. And I get people all the time, bro, because I talk about weapons a lot. I love weapons, man. I collect weapons, and not to walk around acting, like shit or showing them off. I'm saying for self-defense, and I've been like that since a kid. My dad got me into weapons. My dad got me shooting. My dad collected knives. And so I was like digging it. I was into it big time. So I still am. Anyway, my point is, I get people all the time on these videos go, man, there must be like troll comments, especially on TikTok. Oh man, it must be really sad being so paranoid or running around scared all the time, things like this. And I'm just like, bro.
But dude, it's not about being scared. I mean, I live in a place where, unfortunately, it's not the safest place in the world, right? So yeah. I have to be smart. I mean, it's not about being scared. I have to be smart. I have to keep my head on a swivel. Like at the end of the day, that's the reality of the world that we live in.
Right.
And if people don't understand that and they can't comprehend that, oh well, it is what it is.
Exactly. And here's what I say with those people. It's not being scared, it's being prepared. Would you rather carry something around, whatever it is, and never have to use it, or need it and not have it?
Period. Dude, I could have something on me, right? I could have something on me in my pocket, right? And be driving and get into a road rage incident. It doesn't mean I'm going to pull it out. The only way that I would
Right.
pull it out is if it's a life or death situation.
Exactly,
and to be honest with you, I'm trying to avoid life or death situations. Life is beautiful, man.
Exactly, man.
You know, like,
Who's trying to get into that, bro?
right. So
yeah, it's for self-defense, man.
Right.
100% is for self-defense. That's the right way. That's how you should do it, man. Let me tell you, road rage where I'm at in Texas is off the hook, bro. People are getting shot weekly on the freeway, on the roads, whatever, man, over nothing. There was some kids.
It's like that everywhere. The world is on edge, man. You know, we live in crazy times. I mean,
right.
You know, social media. I mean, I can go on and on and on about the state of our country. I mean, I used to be proud to live here, and it's tough to be proud to be from here now because of the way that the world is today, and especially America. I mean, how old are you?
I'm 50, bro.
Okay, so excuse me. You have a couple years on me. I'm 45. I'll be 45 in August, but you've seen the decline. I mean, it's bad.
And one of the, and I won't even get into.
I'm just gonna grab some water. I'm just gonna grab some water. Can I?
Go ahead, man. Go ahead, bro. Yes.
Are you gonna edit this?
So
my apologies, bro. I have allergies, wicked bad. So.
Oh man, no, that's okay. Same thing here, man. It's terrible, but I think one of the number one problems that's causing this type of stuff to happen is the bail reform, where they don't hold people on murders. They don't, I mean, you can get bail on like some really bad cases, even if you have a bunch of prior convictions for murder. I don't want people locked up for no reason, but bro, if you're just going around shooting people, robbing people for no reason, you get legitimately caught, man, back in the day you had to deal with it. Now there's dudes getting locked up. They're out on a recognizance bail, a personal recognizance bail in an hour, and they've robbed somebody else, shot someone else.
Listen.
Ridiculous.
I live in a very liberal state. Massachusetts is notoriously liberal. So I think that you're lucky because you live in a conservative state. Here, it's even worse because over here, dude, like that, what you just said is common. It happens all the time.
It's terrible, man.
You got kids that shoot people, and they don't have all the evidence that it's them yet, even though they pretty much know it is them, and that they have all these priors, and they have robberies, this, that, and they let them out. And then what happens when they let them out? They do more violence or more.
Oh man.
Whatever. Yeah. And I don't push the whole jail thing on people. But at the end of the day, if you're a bad person, if you're a bad human being, and you can't be a normal person in society and do the right thing, at the end of the day, you're going to end up in prison or you're going to end up dead. And I think prison is a place where, we need it. At the end of the day, we need it.
Got to, man. You got to. It's there for a reason, bro. There's people that mess with children. There's people that mess with women. There's actual killers that just not. I say for a reason. It wasn't self-defense. It wasn't a group of. They're just targeting innocent people, I should say.
Right.
When you're doing that, bro, there's no place for that, man. And we had one case, man, where a judge actually, this guy he pled guilty to the murder, right? The judge let him go for a haircut before sentencing, released him, and he pled guilty to this murder. And I'm not talking about like it was some gangs. I'm talking about against like a woman or someone, totally just a lame, scumbag move, bro. And the judge, but she got so much heat, she had to, change that. But it's like, can you imagine who would do that, bro?
But in Massachusetts, it's the worst here. It's bad. I mean, it's the same. It's pretty much the same everywhere. It happens everywhere. But especially over here with the pedophiles, man, they give these people slaps on the wrist. I mean, there is no reforming people that touch kids, in my opinion. Unfortunately, it is a learned behavior. I believe that most pedophiles were molested and raped themselves when they were kids. So it's a learned behavior. And unfortunately, when that stuff is ingrained in you, that's who you become. Unfortunately, most of them are a product of their environment. Sadly,
Yeah.
They were raped. They
That's
were
terrible.
raped and they were raped and molested when they were kids. So
Right.
that's all they know. They think it's normal, even though it's not normal. It's sick.
It's sick, man. But I've got no tolerance for that, bro, at all, man.
I don't
So
think.
look, man, we're coming up on 40 minutes, and I want to touch on a couple other things because I told you I try to keep it at somewhere about an hour. That way, people enjoy it. We'll come back and do another one if we need to. I do want to talk with you more about the mixed martial arts and stuff. I may bring my nephew on. I think that we could have a real good conversation with that. But
that would be amazing. I would love that.
Yeah, that'd be awesome, man. But the one thing I did want to talk to you about also, man, is you mentioned Springfield. There's a lot of organized crime there, and then you've also got your friend who I consider a friend too, man, Chicky. Tell me, man, tell me about the organized crime scene there, if there is one, or if it was really public while you were there, and how you got to meet Chicky, also how you guys became friends.
Okay, so basically, I'm not going to talk about current stuff because,
of course not. Of course not.
I have friends. I have friends that are active.
I'm talking about public stuff back in time history.
So I mean, it's no secret that I kind of, I think if you come from Springfield, Massachusetts, unless you're living under a rock, organized crime has always been a presence in Springfield since the 30s. It goes back to Prohibition. Springfield is a hotbed and has always been a hotbed for organized crime and the Genovese crime family. We had a satellite, crew in Springfield since, I would say the 40s and the 50s, So I think that if you've had any brushes with the law or criminality in Springfield, that you've been exposed to organized crime. They, back in the day, they owned everything. Nightclubs, restaurants. Growing up in Springfield, it was common for me to be around wise guys and gangsters because they owned everything. You walk into a pastry shop on a Sunday to go grab pastries for Sunday dinner, and so-and-so is over there picking up their cannolis or whatever the case
may
be.
It was that prevalent, man. It was just that
yeah, it was just around. And when Bruno was alive, Al Bruno, Big Al, the city was a safer place. I hate to, it's the truth. He owned Worthington Street, and Worthington Street is a strip in Springfield where all the nightclubs used to be. And I remember back in the day when Bruno was alive, going to all these nightclubs, and you could walk down the street, and there were fights. Things happened. People got stabbed. Occasionally, somebody got killed. But it was nowhere near what it's like today. You can't even go down that area anymore. There's no nightclubs there anymore. I think there's one nightclub, and it's called Zone, and they shut it down because multiple people have gotten killed there.
Right.
That's that. As far as Springfield goes, Springfield's a city of 300,000 people. It's the most dangerous city in Massachusetts. So I think that if you grew up in Springfield, like my father, he grew up in Springfield. So like my father grew up with guys that were involved in that life. My father was never involved in that life, but if you're from Springfield, somebody.
You would know, right? So it's funny that you said that because I hear that from different communities, man, and even totally different type of organized crime here, but people saying that when these guys were around, things were safer, or they felt safer, or it wasn't as much like other types of crime. So that seems to be kind of a common thread, man. I guess people that would be like rogue jackers or robbers or whatever don't do that in those areas for fear of what would happen for the most part.
Right. And as far as me and Chicky go, we met. I want to say like I don't know, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, something like that. But we used to frequent the same social club, the Our Lady of Mount Carmel Club, which was the club where Bruno got killed.
Was killed,
I was friends with, I was friends with a guy that was around Chicky a long time, and we just basically were part of the same. We had the same friend group. We were around the same group of guys, and we used to frequent the social club. So my day would start. I'd go down to the social club, and me and Chicky would have coffee, and we'd sit down at the club with all the guys, and we'd order lunch together, and we'd eat together. And I mean, this was an everyday thing for 3 to 5 years of my life. So I mean, we have a lot of the same friends, and a lot of the we hung around together for a lot of years. Obviously, Springfield and Chicky have a long history. He was around Bruno at the time. When he was around Bruno, I was living in Boston, so I wasn't around. I wasn't around, but I came after that. And that's that. That's how I know Chicky. But we developed a really close relationship, and I was friends with his nephew, who was the leader of the Latin Kings, who went to jail. And I kind of grew up around that too, because that was one of the biggest street gangs in Springfield, was the Latin Kings.
Latin Kings, yeah. We even had Latin Kings down here back in the 80s even. So yeah, I'm familiar with there. But yeah, man, Chicky, man, I like Chicky, man. He's a good dude. And I really
he's one of my closest friends, to this day. I mean, if I need advice, I call him, and vice versa. If he needs advice, he calls me. And sometimes, we probably shouldn't be giving each other advice, because I mean, I ain't playing with a full deck, and neither is he. So
both of y'all, man, feeding off each. It's funny, man, because
it's like the blind leading the blind.
right. That's what I'm saying. Like, I'm not even going to talk about the exact story, but like me and you were talking, and like you guys telling each other, hey, I'm going to do this or I'm going to do that. I'm just cracking up going, both of these guys, man, neither one of them should be telling each other, hey, don't do it. If one of you guys is telling the other guy, don't do this, man, it must be some bad shit, bro.
To be honest with you, man, like, he's a guy that if I needed him at 3 a.m, I could call him, and vice versa.
Of course,
and vice versa, and you have to have friends like that in your life. And
sure,
I know that if God forbid something happened to one of my family members, or vice versa, he would be there for me, and I know that I can count on him and stuff like that.
Right.
He'll always be a lifelong friend of mine. He just went through some stuff recently. His brother passed away.
I know, man. Sorry about that.
And and I went to the wake and stuff. And, and his brother was a good man. He was never involved in anything. That was his nephew's father. So the Latin King's father passed away. And it was sad. And Chicky, kind of took it kind of hard, because he looked at it like the one brother I had that was good is now gone. Because he's not close with his other brother at all. I mean, he doesn't even talk to his other brother. So, it is what it is.
Yeah, that's tough, man. That's terrible. I'm friends with him also on like Facebook and stuff, so I saw that and I was really, that sucks.
Anytime somebody we love passes away, it's unfortunate, but man, this is the circle of life,
Right. So we're coming up almost on 10 minutes now, and I wanted to ask you about one more thing. Is it okay if I pull up that picture of you with Chicky and John? Is that one okay to pull up, bro? All right, I'm gonna pull up this one, man. So we got this picture, man. Tell me about just you're dealing with John, man, and what you think about him, and then what you think about the podcast that he did, the first episode, I guess. And we'll kind of wrap it up with that, man, if you want.
So I want to say that picture was taken. That was an amazing night. That was at a restaurant in Oyster Bay, Long Island, called the Homestead. and John is friends with the owner, so he put us in the back private room. We had a big table. There was about John's son wasn't in that picture, but he came later after the picture was taken. The fighter, John the Third.
I'm gonna pull up that picture.
We all sat and had he's fighting Mayweather. That was just announced, so that's huge, man, and I'm happy for him. He's a great kid. He's a talented fighter, and he's just a really nice kid, and he's tough as hell and very humble. But yeah, I mean, look, man, I hold John in such high regard, and I know that certain people think that I don't support anybody that attacks anybody's families, and there's a lot of that stuff that goes on YouTube. But I'm here to say that, like, at the end of the day, I stand with John Jr. I think that he's so above all this YouTube nonsense because of the life that he lived. I don't think it's fair for anybody on YouTube to judge John. I mean, he grew up in the life. His father was one of the most notorious gangsters of all time, and those were big shoes to fill. And he fought 5 trials, man, and he saw the writing on the wall that he wanted to be with his real family over his other family. And he became a civilian in 1995. He denounced that life. And he just, I can't say enough about the guy. I mean, he's a great family man. I think he's the godfather of like 12 children. I mean, when his son fights, thousands of people come to support. When he's at an event, it's very difficult to even have a conversation with him because there'll be 50 people around him looking to get his attention. Sure. He just has that aura and that presence about him. He's a larger than life kind of guy. And honestly, man, it's my honor and my pleasure to even have known him and to been able to, go to cigar bars with him, go to dinner with him, have him tell me some of the stories from back in the day. And I was in Witsec Mafia, which is going to be coming out soon. I know everybody's saying that it's never going to come out. It's 100% going to come out. Look, John's a smart guy. He wants to get a good deal. He wants to make sure that he gets the best deal possible. What people don't understand is that these things take 8, 10, a long time, years, to get done. Yeah. So we filmed in 2000 during COVID. So look, it hasn't really been that long considering Hollywood. Yeah. Look, the guy wants to get the best deal possible. So I hope that sums up what I think of John. I think that, a lot of people like to, throw that word around. I think it's disgraceful for them to even think about calling him that, especially the people that are calling him that. So,
Gotcha, man. Yeah.
You talk.
Right. And how we were speaking of like the guys who were like the pressure of a guy who's a champ or whatever like that. I can't imagine, say he never stepped into that life at all. Just being the son of John Gotti, the pressure has to be it's a different level, bro.
It's like living in a pressure cooker, man. It's like living in a pressure cooker. Like you have to look, his father was a notorious guy with a notoriously he had a crazy temper. A hair trigger temper. The guy was a gangster through and through, and those are huge shoes to fill, and I just think that John didn't want that life for himself anymore. He didn't want it anymore. And,
I think he made the right decision, bro, because listen, man, everybody was gone. He was going to be set up just like his father was, life in prison. There was no way around it. And now he's with his kids, his wife, and he can live his life. Yeah, man, the stuff that some of the people say, I don't know, bro. I wouldn't even respond.
The thing is this: it it doesn't affect him because he doesn't watch it. So it doesn't.
It shouldn't, man. It shouldn't. Why should he let anything like that? And you know, I made a comment that yesterday, man. On there was a show and people were talking about it, and I normally don't make comments of any type of argument because it's just pointless, and I just don't want to do it anyway. I don't need it, man. So, but I did say this, man. I said, you know, I don't think John really cares what anybody thinks of him, what they say, or anything like that, man. The guy's living a good life. He's with his family. He's at home. He's free. And I think that's the most important thing, man.
He's not living a good life. He's living a great life. I mean, the guy.
That's what I'm saying.
The guy can travel wherever he wants.
Yeah.
The guy has lots and lots of money. He can do whatever he wants in his life. If he wants to get up, go to an island tomorrow and live there the rest of his life, he can do that.
Right.
And not only that, he's living in New York and has love and respect from so many people, man. I tell people this. If you want to know who John Gotti Jr. is, watch Gotti Father and Son. It's a special that A&E
really
made. It's a two-part series.
Very
and that'll really give you an idea of who John Gotti Jr. is as a father, as a friend, and as a person. And you know, he likes to say it was an honor for him to have his dad be his dad because of who his dad was and the way that his dad taught him. Yeah. You know, and I think that we need to kind of humanize these people, because at the end of the day, we're all human beings, man, that make mistakes, and we have to live with the stuff that we do in life. And the way that John Gotti, the father, died in prison was horrible. I mean, they treated the guy like he was an animal. And at the end of the day, the only person that can judge us is God. At the end of the day, you know. So, I recommend everybody to watch Gotti Father and Son because it's a great special.
That is a good one. It's very good. Hey, man. So we're coming up on an hour, man. I told you I wouldn't hold you longer than that. We'll set up and do another one anytime that you want. And bro, I really, really appreciate you, man, taking the time to, you know, sit and talk with me and everything. We'll release this. And, you know, I'll put it as a premiere. So if you want to also, you can pop up in the chat or the comments and we can answer. And then we may do one later. If anybody has questions, post it in the comments. And if Damien has time and he wants to do it, then we'll set up to, you know, maybe answer some questions or something, man. So I really appreciate it, bro.
Before I go, I want to say, Mike, it was a pleasure, man. You've always carried yourself like a gentleman on YouTube, man. You've always been good to me, so I appreciate it. And as far as all the YouTube drama and stuff like that, like, I'm gonna just say it like this: I have a great life. I really, really could care less about what people say about me. But if you're gonna talk about me, and this goes for anybody that talks about me on YouTube, at least tell the truth. You know, tell the truth. If you're going to make up stuff about me, at least have it be the truth. And I know who I am. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. I don't need validation from other people to know who I am. You know, I have a great life. I have a great family. And I want to thank you so much, Mike, for letting me come on. And I hope that when we do this next time, we can have your nephew so we can have a conversation.
Yeah, man, without a doubt, because you guys could really vibe on the more you know, intricate stuff of that, the players and people involved, because I'm just out of it, bro. Thanks so much, Damien. I appreciate it, bro.
Man. Hey, have a nice weekend. Enjoy your weekend. I don't know if it's beautiful where you are, but it's beautiful here, man.
It is, man. Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for watching, man. Please hit like, subscribe, all those things, man.
Thank you, guys. God bless you. God bless you, Mike.